It's 7:30 in the morning on 5/18/2023, May 18th. Early today, but new stuff. So I want to focus specifically this time on insider threat, the leak stuff that's going on with Airman Teixeira, and just kind of educating and walking folks through what should be known about that particular area. So, as always, get your information from legal court proceedings, the stuff that gets published. This stuff that I'm talking about comes from what was just released this morning, which is why it's 7:30 in the morning, and I'm jumping on this about Airman Teixeira and what was going on there, like the things that this dude was doing. So there's a number one. There's a couple things that I think is worth understanding. Um, there's a difference, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, between corporate whistleblowing, government whistleblowing, and then leaking things for the sake of leaking things. And we'll talk about that too. So first off, corporate whistleblowing, sure, makes sense. If stuff is going wrong and there's not a way to get past it and you can use that protection to do it, I think that is a perfectly valid way of doing it. Government whistleblowing as well. The government, having been military and having worked in the government and highly classified spaces, including special access programs, yeah, if you can get into that, or get a whistleblower because there's no other way to get your information out there for something that's really egregious, there are channels for that. And if you follow that and do the right things, cool. Hopefully it helps. And then there's just the leaking of stuff. Now, I'll read from the prosecution's filings here in a minute, and this is all public knowledge about Airman Teixeira, but this has gone on more than once. There was the Reality Winner, there was Manning, there's been others. There's a difference between the process that you go through, and I'll talk about that too, not to get myself in trouble on the classified side, but just the basics of it, and what you do that gets you access to that information. And then we'll talk about the analytics side of this and why this is so important and pressing as well. If you're going to work for the federal government or a military, DoD contractor, whatever, DoD civilian, when you go to get those classified accesses, it is super imposing. Your SF-86 is like 86 or 100 pages of people prying into every aspect of your life, and they will go through everything you've ever done. When I got my first clearance, when I was stationed on board the USS Cape St. George, when I was cross rating, they went back to talk to people that I worked with in high school, like literally just, and I was from this little redneck town near Corsicana, Texas, and they went and talked to folks I worked with at the YMCA. The agents that do their job will go through everything that you've done, and they will look at everything. Now, when you get access to SCI, which is compartmented information, or special access programs, a lot of people call it SAP, it gets even more intrusive. If you ever get into those things, which are extremely selective, they're going to make you do more background checks. They're going to do polygraphs, including counterintelligence and possibly lifestyle polygraphs, depending on whether you're military or not. And they're probably going to do psychological evals, which are super fun. Let me tell you, they make you feel like you're nuts and that you're a terrible person. And if you've never taken a polygraph, you can understand really quickly when you take a polygraph why they're not admissible in court. But it does make you sweat bullets. Like, you think about every terrible thing you've ever done in your life, and that's what they want. That's what they're trying to do, is to get you to admit. Matter of fact, I had a friend of mine who was a polygrapher for the NSA who told me flat out, he's like, yeah, we're trying to get you to admit to things because of the fact that you're hooked up to a machine. They're not admissible in court in most states, I believe. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying, I think that's what I understand. So you go through this whole long process. You spend lots and lots of time looking at lots of paperwork, going through it. You tell all your friends and family that, hey, don't fuck around when people call you, and don't joke about it because I need this clearance, blah, blah, blah. And that clearance is worth a lot of money. If you're military or whatever, and you come out into the DoD space and you want to make six figures, like leave a job Friday, make six figures Monday, get his SCI clearance. Done. Given 100% guarantee. You can sit there and suck oxygen. You're going to make six figures or more really quickly, depending on if you have a special access and polygraphs and all those things. So they're worth the effort. But you get access to the information because you've been vetted, because they've been through that stuff. Now, we'll talk about Teixeira's case here in a second, but Teixeira, we should note there's something wrong with the way that this cat ever got access to anything, and I'll run through that in a second. When you look at people that do stuff in these classified spaces, you also sign additional documents that talk about what will happen to you should you decide to leak said information. And it's not unclear at all. It is exceptionally clear what will happen to your future and your life if you decide that you want to go off and leak this stuff. And if you decide to do that, it's your choice, but you will reap the whirlwind for it. And you should, in my opinion. Like, this is just my opinion. The most valuable stuff we have in the intelligence community is what we call sources and methods. And sources and methods are places and things and people that we get stuff from at exceptionally classified levels. And you put people's lives at risk when you leak that information. Now, everybody talks about, should you be publishing stuff for the purposes of, improving public knowledge and whatever else? There's reasons that this stuff is not published the way that it's not published. And that's usually because it's exceptionally grave damage to national security, or you might cause someone to lose their life. You might cause someone's family to lose their lives. If they can't get to that person, like, imagine you leak something about someone that's giving information to, I don't know, a terrorist organization or whatever else, someone that's collaborating with the U.S. intelligence agency, and you leak some information about that individual. That individual probably will bag ass and disappear once they find out that they've been compromised, but their family, their friends, the people that are around them are still going to be in that area. And if you're not aware of it, like ISIS and those groups, they don't play. So those folks will be dealt with, and it won't be pleasant. And I'm talking from personal experience that you leak that stuff, not me leaking that stuff. I'm just saying you leak that stuff and it gets out there. People get hurt, people die, people are tortured, all kinds of bad things happen. On top of that, there is the potential risk to national security at the highest levels. You might leak information that will go out there and get that will cause grave damage to our future relations with other countries. Ukraine is an example. There's stuff that happened 10 years ago that is currently affecting relationships with Ukraine. There's stuff that happened 10 years ago with Manning that's affecting our relationships with NATO. There's huge impact for leaking this stuff. It's not given away willy-nilly. Now, on the side of that equation, where does someone's personal ethics fit into this? In my opinion, if you're going to have access to classified information, you should be an individual who has the ability to keep things quiet and closed and keep your mouth shut. You sign away, I'm thinking, and again, this is just my opinion here. When you get access to information, if you have the integrity that I think you should have, you're signing away the ability to share that information for those purposes I talked about. Again, if you run into something that's exceptionally egregious or that causes, loss of human life and whatever else, there are channels to get that information out. Is it easy? No. Is it fun? No. Are you probably going to suffer career impacting things? Yes. But if you want to be someone that does that, the channels are there for those reasons. I mean, whistleblowers get protection, if you're not familiar with that. Now, Teixeira, there's already the argument coming back from the defense in this case that he's a 21-year-old kid. He's, just being a dumbass and whatever else. And sure, at 21, everybody's fucking stupid. At 43, I'm kind of still stupid. But at 21, with the fact that this individual has gone through all of the information and training and education that they have to get access to this type of data, and because he's a system administrator on a classified system, it's not unclear to this 21-year-old what would happen to him should he decide to leak said information. Like, this dude knew what was going to happen to him. Now, whether or not that's just youth and stupidity and not thinking he'd get caught or something else, it doesn't matter. There are laws in this country because we need laws, and this individual did not follow the protocols and laws. If you wanted to whistleblow, follow the whistleblower process. Reality winner, if she wanted to do what she did, don't print stuff up and then smuggle it out. Follow the process. Like, it's there for a reason. This cat knew exactly what he was doing and knew that it was going to come back and get him at some point, but he was trying to be cool. Now, let's read through. There's 18 pages in the charges that were just released. I'm not going to read through all of it, but let me read through some of this because this gives you an indication of part of the problem with some of this process as well. So this is from case document file as of 4/26/2023. There's United States of America versus Jack Douglas Teixeira, and this is in Massachusetts. I won't give out the court numbers and filings because that's information you can go look up on your own. Basically, this is the court, the prosecutor's stuff to the judge saying that he should not be allowed to get out of jail on bond or bail or whatever else. So let's start with first, right? The defendant poses a serious flight risk. He faces 25 years in prison and potentially far more for other serious consequences for conduct. Evidence against him is substantial and mounting. The charge conducted would be very obviously end his military career, and he may still have access to classified information that would be of tremendous value to hostile nation states that could offer him safe harbor. So essentially, they're saying here, don't let this kid out because he may have access to additional classified information, and he might be willing to broker that to go live in, I don't know, Russia or something. Him and Steven Seagal can hang out. Second, the defendant's own obstructive and deceptive acts to date compound his risk of flight and dangerousness, having undermined any counter arguments he could offer in response and give rise to a serious risk that such a person will obstruct or attempt to obstruct justice, and that's according to court code. Not only does the defendant stand charged with having betrayed his oath and his country, but when those actions began to surface, he appears to have taken a series of obstructive steps intended to thwart the government's ability to ascertain the full scope of what he has obtained and the universe of unauthorized users with whom he shared those materials. This includes instructions the defendant gave to other members of a social media platform, which was Discord, to, quote, delete all message, and, quote, if anyone comes looking, don't tell them shit. As well as the fact that following his arrest, authorities searched a dumpster at his residence, found a tablet, a laptop, an Xbox gaming console, all of which had been smashed to try and cover up what was going on. Apparently, it sucks for him, even though he's administrator, no stuff gets stored on servers, logs, right? These efforts appeared calculated to delay or prevent the government from gaining a full understanding of the seriousness and scale of his conduct. Any promise by the defendant to stay at home rather than jail should be waived, blah, blah, blah. So, follow on here. So, statement of proffered acts. The government proffers facts here in the defendant's flight risk and danger. So this is about flight risk, whatever. Here's the professional history stuff. And this is where there's some interesting things to know about that should have been triggers behaviorally, professionally, militarily, that this individual should have been booted from access to anything. This guy should have been vacuuming the parking lot. The professional history. So defendant listed in U.S. Air National Guard in 2019. The defendant served as an E3 or airman with the title of Cyber Defense Operations Journeyman. During that time, he was stationed at Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts. He had a secret, top secret clearance, SCI, which was given him in 2021. He signed a whole bunch of non-disclosure agreements, an SCI agreement, rules of behavior, accessible use of standard. So lots and lots of documents said he would never divulge this information. And again, just to let you know, like literally this is in the words that you sign. The defendant also acknowledged by signing that the unauthorized disclosure of classified information could constitute a criminal offense. So you know this. Nevertheless, government records reflect that beginning in February 2022, the defendant began to access hundreds of classified documents containing national defense information that he had no bearing on his role. Because he was an IT administrator, he was able to access it, though. So doing stuff outside the bounds of his work. This sounds like a zero trust type thing. Personal history. The defendant is 21 years old, graduated from high school in 2019, does not have a college degree. In 2018, while still in high school, the defendant was suspended when a classmate overheard him make remarks about weapons, including Molotov cocktails, guns at the school, and racial threats. Does that sound like somebody that, number one, we should have in the Air Force, and number two, that we should have access to classified information? In the pre-trial services interview, the defendant attributed those remarks to a reference to a video game. So, dude's a gamer. I think if I remember correctly, it was really big into Grand Theft Auto. In 2018, while still a teenager, the defendant applied for a firearms identification card. His application was denied due to the concern to the local police department over defendant's remarks at his high school. The defendant remained undeterred and applied again in 2019 and 2020. In 2020 application, the defendant cited his position of trust in the U.S. government as an airman to purchase said firearm. The defendant's primary residence was mother and stepfather, blah, blah, blah. The defendant kept the gun in his footlocker near his bed. Okay, fine, whatever. In the gun locker were multiple weapons, including handguns, bolt-action rifles, shotguns, AK-style high-capacity weapon, gas mask. FBI agents also found ammunition, tactical pouch on his dresser, and what appeared to be a silencer-style accessory from his drawer. So further on to this. A review of records from a social media platform, Discord, which it won't say, also indicated the defendant regularly made comments about violence and murder. In November 2022, the defendant stated that if he had his way, he would kill a expletive ton of people because it would be, quote, culling the weak-minded. In February 2023, the defendant told a user that he attempted to make a specific type of minivan into an assassination van. Also in 2023, defendant sought advice from another user about what type of rifle would be easy to operate from the back of an SUV. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today. He describes how he would conduct the shooting in a crowded urban or suburban environment. In 2023, defendant described SUV and crossovers as mobile gun trucks and good off-road assassination vehicles. Yeah. Let's see what else this dude did. The defendant posted photographs of certain prior posts containing information that appears with classified information on it. So he posted pictures of this stuff on Discord. He acknowledged that he'd posted classified information on Discord. Referenced the intelligence community agencies from which the information was derived. So he's an administrator and he's screenshotting things, and he's taking those screenshots and putting them onto Discord. And then he's saying, I got this from CIA and this from FBI and this from whatever. And if you're not familiar with the way that those networks work, at some level, there is interconnections between those systems. And if you are an administrator with the right privileges, you can get to things. This is what happened with Snowden and Manning and whatever else. And honestly, we'll talk about that in a second, why this is indicative of the need for role-based access control and ZT in those systems. The defendant encouraged other users to make requests for information. So he's on Discord and he's asking his homies in this gaming chat, like, hey, what else would you like to see from these classified systems? In March 2023, the defendant stated that although he was very happy and willing and enthusiastic to have covered this event for the past year and share all of you with something that very few people, in fact, get to see, I've decided to stop with the updates. And in April, he switched to a new username and said, if anyone comes looking for me, don't tell them shit, quote. He also encouraged that users delete all messages, quote, and told them to pass message on to others to do the same. Now, that's like enough of this to kind of just get people to understand what's going on. And this is like a super clear-cut case of this is an individual who knowingly went outside the bounds of the law, went outside the bounds of the things that he had signed and agreed to, and decided to do other stuff, whether it was for the purposes of trying to show off how super cool he was or get gamers to think he was amazing or awesome or something, whatever. It doesn't matter. The full weight of the federal government's coming at this guy, and it's not going to go well for him. Now, to be perfectly fair, this also I think is interesting when you think about, well, what goes on with the Presidential Records Acts, right? Why can the president just walk out with stuff and put it in there and say, in Dominus Patria Filii Sancti, I just declassify this stuff? I don't think that that's right either. That's pretty wrong if you ask me. I know when I was running the skiff, everyone that came and entered the skiff, every time you entered and left, you pulled your pockets out and physically showed me that there was nothing in there. And if you weren't willing to do that, you weren't leaving my fucking skiff. Like, that's all there was to it. As a matter of fact, when we were deployed, there was times where some of that stuff almost got physical, and in some cases it did get a little physical because people would try and joke around and leave without showing you, because what was in their pockets. It's your life, it's your career. I'm not going to Leavenworth because somebody snug a piece of paper out of my skiff. These things are not cool. There's a difference between corporate whistleblowing and in my opinion, and again, these are all my opinions. Like, I could be wrong. Lord knows I'm wrong on a daily basis, hourly even. But if you're going to do these things that will possibly have people get tortured, killed, cause national impact. And I mean, when you're thinking about national impact, think about there's 300 million people in the US, and it's not a joke to say that your leaks could cause negative impact to 300 million people in some way, shape, or form. That's huge. That's pretty friggin' selfish too. If you're just trying to get, some chick to pay attention to you on Discord, and you're willing to risk negative economic impact or negative impact politically or whatever else to 300 million people. There are processes followed. In the corporate world, if things are wrong, you whistleblow, and it might impact the stock value. It might impact the market at some level. It might impact some executives. Somebody might go to jail. You might go to jail. But you're not going to have people get a power drill to their skull for the purposes of torture because you leaked a source or a method within, I don't know, AOL fucking leaks or something like that, whatever. So that's that. Like, I think that's pretty well established. The court's going to come smash this dude. It honestly, I don't think is right that these folks get their sentences commuted and whatever else. If you do these things and you've signed all this paperwork, and I'm telling you from personal experience, it is obtrusive and not fun, and lots of stuff goes on, and you are exceptionally aware of what should and will happen to you. You should be punished to the full extent of the law. Like, that's what the law is for. If you got a whistleblow, follow the process and deal with the fallout. Have the intestinal fortitude to realize that you're probably going to sacrifice your career and potential livelihood and whatever else, right or wrong or whatever. If you want to whistleblow, follow the process. Take it up the chain of command. Do those types of things. Don't try and leak it on Discord because you're trying to get laid. The behavioral analytics side of this stuff is super interesting, though, when you really consider it. So this guy had been making, at the time he was a high school kid. He's 17, 18 years old. Again, everybody's a fucking idiot at that age, whatever. But it was enough for the state, for the county where he was at, to say, we're not going to give you a permit for a firearm right now. Now, that should be an indicator for classified information that at the very least, we should look a little bit further into this individual. Should the government be looking at your social media accounts? No. Should you have a right to privacy? Absolutely. But when you start asking to get access to classified information and you're doing these types of things, you're not waiving, but you're opening yourself up to that analysis. And if you've done things that are indicative of being less than trustworthy, if you've done things and said things and acted in ways that are indicative that you have the quality of character of an individual that should be allowed to access that information, there should be at least a pause in the process and a deeper look. Now, on top of that, there's reporting in here. I didn't read through the whole 18 pages, but there are other reports in here where this kid had been looking, and it was found out by his chain of command that he was looking at information that was not pertinent to his job. Like, literally somebody saw him writing stuff down on a piece of paper and put it in his pocket. That's one problem. Also, there was times where folks were walking by and saw him on systems that he did not need to access. Those types of things are indicative of potential insider threat and risk. Why are you perusing systems that you don't need to go look at? Your job is to do X and Y and Z. In a military context, that's what you do, X and Y and Z. It's not X and Y and Z plus A. If you do that, it's indicative of doing things that are less than on the up and up. If we take in really good telemetry and we have all of this stuff, which we do, you should use it for the purposes of proactively stopping these things from occurring. Like this guy's accounts, the very first time that this individual's account was noted either taking something out in a piece of paper, screenshotting something, carrying his cell phone into the skiff, or looking at systems that he didn't have or need to access, bam, right there, done. Like his access should have been revoked, booted out. Nothing else, no questions asked. Maybe he gets reevaluated. Maybe it goes back through the process again. And if you pass all the checks and whatever else, then great, you get access to that stuff again. But the risk is not worth, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, if you will. So I think, in my opinion, again, that we have all this telemetry, we have all this information, we have the strategic value proposition around ZT. And if anything, this to me is more indicator that administrators and individuals with high levels of access should not have unfettered access, should not have excessive privileges, should be operating in a zero trust environment, period, point blank, end of story. We should be able to predictively and proactively analyze behaviors of individuals, especially take away all the social media shit. Just look at what they're doing on the network. Is that indicative of potentially risky or malicious behavior? If it is, at the bare minimum, step it up and send someone a thing and say, hey, go talk to this person. Go check this individual's access. And if that doesn't do it, then start removing accesses and just step it up over time. We can do this right now. There are systems. I was at RSA. There are systems out there that can do this. There's a whole bunch of tools and solutions that can do this. It's not a question of does the technology exist? It's a question of do organizations have the guts to employ this because they're worried about irritating people or hurting their feelings or whatever else. If your feelings get hurt because you're doing stuff that's bad and you're doing stuff that's potentially illegal, your feelings should probably get hurt. If we block your access because you do something as a oopsie, then we know about it and we can fix the problem and go on. It can be that simple. It can be that clear. I mean, it's not a good topic. It's not a fun topic to talk about because it makes everyone kind of hesitant to say what they think and whatever else. But in my opinion, we have the technology to do this stuff predictably and proactively. We have the right, when you're on a system, whether you're taking a paycheck from someone or you're working for the government or whatever else, to analyze and look at your activity on the network. And it makes sense that if you do things and say things that are indicative of less than trustworthy behavior, you should have accesses at the very minimum analyzed for possible revocation. We keep dealing with the fallout of leaks, sources and methods in the government sense. Like, people are going to get hurt. People will be put in places where they're not going to do well because of the types of things that this cat leaked. He should get punished to the full extent of the law. That's just what it boils down to. This was not a really good case, honestly. I don't think anybody would agree, of like whistleblowing because he wanted to do something chivalrous. This was, I think I'm cool. I'm 21 years old, even though I know because I signed a bunch of papers and I took it for granted that the government was messing around, and I put it on Discord, and I've caused extreme impact to national security, and it's not going to pay off for you. You know, Manning, I could say to some degree that there was definitely some value in the leaks and things there because there was stuff going on that kind of needed to make its way into the light. But this particular case here is just indicative, again, I think, of individuals doing things that they shouldn't be doing, knowing better, and not really worrying about the consequences. So that's it. I like to keep these things short-ish. I'll cover more topics on the next stuff, but this came up to me this morning. I was waiting for the text document to come out from the court so that I could read through it. And I think this is one of the most important topics in all of cybersecurity is insider threat, insider risk, analytics and behavior, and zero trust. So, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one and they all stink. These are mine, but that's what it is. As always, stay smart, stay safe, stay secure. I'll catch you on the next one.